Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pink and Channels, and welcome back to episode 2 of our deep dive into Norwich City players that have been out on loan and are returning this summer as of the moment. And that's a particular caveat in this video as we talk about Adam Idah and his loan spell at Celtic. I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan McGinlay from the Celtic Way to talk about the Irishman and what was a very successful loan spell, it appears. So, Ryan, let's talk all things Adam Idah. I mean, I think let's start at the beginning because it was quite intriguing, and I remember I came on your guys' platforms around the time that this signing got confirmed or was about to be confirmed. It was in the stages of it anyway, and I remember sort of being asked a lot of questions about Adam Idah and the type of player he was, but also perhaps some of the fan reaction that had been around the signing from a Celtic perspective in terms of taking a Norwich player who perhaps hadn't been first choice at the club and taking him on loan. So I guess the first question, and maybe this is an easy one to answer, but has he changed that perception of him? Because it certainly from the outside looking in feels like he's done that.
Listen, I think there's been a lot of humble pie being eaten over in the north of the border after the second half of the season. Listen, I think a lot of people were a bit underwhelmed when Adam Idah's name was mentioned, maybe just due to looking at his goal record, looking at where he was in the pecking order at Norwich at that point in time. I know he was playing third choice. Was it Ashley
Mm.
Barnes and Josh Sargent that were the two players that were ahead of him at that point in time? What was I was trying to figure out what was going wrong for him because he's an Irish international, he's got Premier League experience, and he's not getting game time for Norwich. My goodness, what an impression he's made in the 4, 5, 6 months he's been at the club. Got to remember he was brought in near enough on deadline day as well. A lone player coming in. A lot of fans were a bit unimpressed with maybe what it looked like optics wise. But when he got onto that pitch, my goodness, I think he's almost single handedly won Celtic the league season this season, the league title and the double. Definitely has won the double single handedly with his late goal in the Scottish Cup final, which is further endeared them to the Celtic support and everybody covering them. Even the guys like myself and Tony who are on the website, we all can't get enough of Adam Idah at this moment in time. Even seeing him doing well the other night for Ireland against Hungary, scoring goals. I seen a tweet saying the Norwich City man, and I'm like, I'm so used to calling him the Celtic man for a bit. So it's very much a watch this space, I guess, with Adam Idah. But in terms of perceptions, he did so well to change perceptions of what was, maybe a bit of an eye roll when he came in. A lot of fans were collectively doing an eye roll as if another lone player coming in that will do until the end of the season. Now everybody wants to sign him, so I guess he's done well in that regard.
Is there a moment or a goal or a game that really stands out as the point where that flipped and that view on him flipped? Was it something that happened pretty quickly? Did it take a little bit longer?
I remember when he came on in his debut, he assisted Nicholas Kuhn, who was another one of Celtic's January signings. He only signed 2 players in January, which a lot of people said wasn't enough. Kuhn had good moments here and there, but it was Adam Idah that was the big success story out of the two. He assisted Kuhn by passing it out to him at Pittodrie. Now, Celtic drew that game, but it was an important point in the long term because they didn't lose the game. They still get that point. They were behind in that game, and they brought it back to get an equaliser. So that was a good moment. He's also had a couple of really big late goals, specifically taking penalties as well. Celtic have had a lot of problems with penalties this season. Lewis Palmer was taking them at the start. He missed a few. I think Hattati missed one as well. Matt O'Reilly's now taking them. But that's just due to the fact that Adam Idah was on the bench at that point. I'm sure if he was starting, he would have been the designated penalty kick taker. Hibs away scores 2 penalties, including one in stoppage time, which was a massive moment. Celtic were, on the ropes, to use a boxer's analogy or a boxer's boxing term. The title was not a guarantee this season, the way that Celtic were playing. They did so well to get 8 points clear, and then they squandered that with the new Rangers manager coming in. Obviously, Todd Cantwell being a part of the Rangers side, so that's a familiar name. But big moments, scoring penalties, big headers, strikes, poachers' goals. He really has scored them all at Celtic. I think it's 9 goals and 19 appearances, but his start to goal record is something incredible. He makes
Yeah.
a difference when he comes onto the park, and I think he's very much in the hearts and minds of the Celtic support now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you referenced it there. I've got the stats in front of me in terms of the amount of starts that he's had for Celtic. I think it's something like four in the league. Yeah, four in the league. One in after obviously the split. So five in the league, and then two in the Scottish Cup, which obviously we know he produced a rather big moment in. So we're talking what 7 starts out of his 19 appearances, and you referenced it. What was it? 9 goals in that period, a couple of assists as well. It's a remarkable record, and I think probably. And again, I appreciate this is difficult for you to answer because maybe you didn't watch a huge amount of him at Norwich, but there are Norwich fans who are wondering what on earth has changed. Has he kind of spoken about what he feels has changed, or why he feels he's had more success at Celtic and in those conditions, or are there any changes that Brendan Rodgers has made to his game to help that?
I think you've half given it away there by mentioning his name, Brendan Rodgers, a guy that knows him from playing against them or managing against his teams in terms of when he was playing for Norwich and Brendan Rodgers was at Leicester City. He's obviously kept an eye on this player, and it's been a perfect thought. I say like a reunion. I know it's not a reunion. I know they've not worked together before, but like the two actually coming together again, but actually working alongside each other. Brendan Rodgers was waxing lyrical about him when he came through the door because there was a lot of people that needed convincing about Adam Idah, just due to the amount of games that he's had. Maybe his poor goal return, even though he's is still quite young for a striker, he doesn't have the best goal
Mm.
to game return. But Brendan Rodgers was like, this is the sort of player that he's needed. He's got a diminutive striker in Kyogo Furuhashi that scores goals, and he likes playing, getting the ball inside. But with Adam Idah, he changes the game completely. He can hold up the ball. He can bring other people into the game. He's quick as well. He's deceptively quick. I know I'm telling you things that you probably already know about Adam Idah, but in the short time that we've seen him at Celtic, he's really if this is an audition process, then he's passed with flying colours because he really has been exceptional for the limited time he's been at the club. I can only imagine how many more goals he would have scored if he came in at the start of the season. But from the end of January to the middle of May, it's an incredible goal return for him. I don't think he could have done any more. Although maybe he actually could have scored more goals against Rangers. He had a couple more chances, particularly in the home game. But I think a lot of people are hoping that they can save that for next season if he joins on a permanent.
It's interesting, isn't it? And obviously there's so much from a Norwich perspective that we could speak about, being in the same environment for a long period of time, and maybe that sort of fresh scenery has really given him the boost that he needed. And I think that was a little bit of what David Wagner spoke about actually at the time in January, a reason as to why they let him out, but also he'd pushed to go out on loan to kind of experience that. But to be dropped into that environment, I mean, you know all too well the pressure, the size of representing a club like Celtic, everything that comes with that. And I think from a Norwich perspective, everyone was looking at how he struggled with confidence, and he's admitted this over the last few years at Norwich City, and thinking, goodness me, dropping him into that type of environment could be very difficult for him. But actually, that seems to be something that he's really relished and something that he's really sort of grown into and taken on his shoulders quite willingly.
Yeah, I think it's just a change of scenery that has really, really helped him. And you talk about his confidence. He hasn't looked like a player that's short on confidence whenever he plays for Celtic. When he comes onto the park, you can see he's willing everybody. He's willing his teammates, and he's also willing himself to get goals, get assists, make himself a nuisance, a pest up front. That's another thing that's good about him. Even though he's a tall player, I think he's 6'1", 6'2". He's a bit of a pest. He's at people's knees and feet and trying to get the ball off of them. He's a guy that's clearly bought into it. And there's a cliche up north that we always talk about a player that gets it. He truly does get what it means to play for Celtic and be part of that winning mentality. It's that option, that extra option that's been when Adam Idah comes off the bench. Either that or if he starts, it's just having an extra option to have. Kyogo's a good striker in his own right, a very good striker, but Adam Idah is probably more akin to what Brendan Rodgers likes to work alongside. I know he worked alongside players like Patson Daka, Jamie Vardy at Leicester, but he does like a powerhouse up front as well. You look at Moussa Dembele, you look at Odsonne Edouard. These were all big, imposing figures. And Idah's kind of like a hybrid of the two, I would say, but it's the best of both worlds because he's mobile, but he can still put himself about. I just think he's really enjoyed his time at Celtic, and whether that's the end of the story or the start of a permanent deal, I think it will do wonders for his career having that confidence. I think you can even see that when he plays for the Republic of Ireland. He's now got a swagger back that I think he's been missing for the past couple of years, and people can't speak highly enough of him up north.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see him with a smile back on his face. I think it's something.
Smiling a lot. That's, I think it's
Yeah,
good to
yeah,
see.
absolutely. He's quite a frustrated figure at points at Norwich, and for good reason, like you say. Not. I think he would argue he's not really had a run in the team to show what he can do. He's obviously spent a long period of time behind Temu Pukki, then he's behind Josh Sargent. That's very difficult to deal with, and like you say, different sort of role. But I guess it's all about management, isn't it? And making him feel part of kind of the side, and making him a key part of that, as you mentioned, even if he doesn't perhaps start a lot of games. One thing I did want to ask you about, and you referenced it right at the start, and I've heard Brendan Rodgers describe him as a catalyst as well to Celtic going on and doing the domestic double that they did. Just explain to us a little bit about what he gave Celtic at that time compared to what they were missing, because everyone saw how the title race narrowed after Philippe Clement came in at Rangers, and it looked a bit hairy for various points. What has he injected into that team that was required? Is it a bit of competition? What was the key, and why are people sort of describing him as the catalyst?
I think big goals, competition, and the fact he was a third option as well, or a second option, because Celtic have three strikers at the moment. They've got Kyogo, who is very much first choice. He's the main man at Celtic in a striking capacity. When you think of Celtic strikers, you think of probably Kyogo at this moment in time. They've also got a South Korean striker, Oh Hyung-yu, who has been in and out of the squad. He's not hardly had any game time this season. He was an Ange Postecoglou signing. I think he's kind of fallen through the trap door in that sense of being in between managers, where Ange Postecoglou left, Brendan Rodgers is in, and he doesn't have any allegiances or loyalty to him. So I think he'll probably move to pastures new in the summer. Big moments, the goals at Fir Park, the goals at Easter Road, goal at Ibrox, goals at Celtic Park. He's been scoring everywhere, and then finally that goal at Hampden, massive. Jack Butland does make a mistake, admittedly, but he's there. He's there to capitalise on the error and put it in the back of the net. 25th of May is a very, very important day in Celtic's history. That's the day that they won the European Cup against Inter Milan in 1967. He's wrote his own wee bit of history as well with being at Celtic and scoring in a cup final on the 25th of May. So regardless of what happens now, whether he does get a permanent move to Celtic, whether he gets a permanent move to somewhere else, or he reignites his career at Norwich, he'll always have that great 5-6 months at Celtic. And I think loads and loads of Celtic fans, supporters will be so proud and pleased and thankful that he's had that, because without him, I don't think Celtic would have won the league with the big moments that they had. It's not just big goals away from home, it's big goals away from home late on in games, 89th, 90th minutes, scoring doubles, scoring late goals, scoring goals at Ibrox when there's not even any Celtic fans at the away ground, to channel that pressure and then use it as something to thrive upon. He's just been an absolutely mammoth signing for Celtic, and I think I speak for a lot of Celtic supporters in saying that we do hope that he does stay, because I think we've only scratched the surface of what Adam Idah could be, especially at Celtic. The lure of the Champions League might be big for him as well, in order to take that next step and doing it in the Champions League. There has been links with other strikers, Danish strikers, Odsonne Edouard returning, although probably the wages will be a bit sky high on that. So if Celtic could do a permanent deal for Adam Idah, then I think everybody would be pretty happy with that recruitment.
Yes, and that was going to be my final question, really, because Brendan Rodgers wants it. Adam Idah probably wants it from what he said. The Celtic fans want it. What are the feelings at the moment? Is it one of optimism, pessimism around Adam Idah returning on a permanent basis? What's the Celtic feeling on that at the moment?
I think at the moment there's more optimism regarding Paulo Bernardo rejoining Celtic, who was the other player that was on loan this season from Benfica. Benfica's a B team and sort of on the fringes of things. He's under 21 Portuguese captain, so he's quite highly rated. But he's came out and said that, or he hasn't come out and said, but the reports have said that he wants to stay at the club permanently, the club that he's settled down with and played a lot of games with. Idah, I think the feeling is that a deal can happen. It's whether or not Celtic want to pay the £5-6 million that Norwich are asking for. I think they can spend that money. They'll get a lot of riches from being in the Champions League. They need a striker, because it looks as if, as I said previously, will leave the club. There's still question marks on the long-term future of Kyogo as well, being 29 years old. But with Adam Idah, 23, he's still got loads and loads of years. He's still essentially a baby when it comes to striking. He won't hit his prime until he's 27, 28. And even then, Celtic might not even see that, even if they do sign him permanently, because he might have moved on to his next club by then. But I think, taking the biased point of view out of it, I think it would be a good move for him as well, because he seems to have really settled. He's got goal scoring. Maybe he suits the league a bit better, a wee bit more physicality in the Scottish League. And he can just play on all surfaces. You've got to play in the plastic pitches as well, although they're getting outlawed in Scotland very, very soon. But you could say that arguably his best performance was on a plastic pitch, which is great to see. Celtic have had so many problems in the past with players not being able to play on that artificial surface. And at Rugby Park against Kilmarnock, he was the best player in the park. It looked as if Kilmarnock and Derek McInnes were having kittens watching him, because they were expecting Kyogo to be playing up front. Instead, Rodgers throws a curveball and throws Adam Idah straight on from the start, and he scores the opening goal and just terrorises Kilmarnock's defence for the full time that he was on. So, yeah, all good reports from up north. I think we're all hoping that he can sign on a permanent deal, but I guess it's more of a watch this space at the moment rather than, hoping. We'll see how it works out. I know that Norwich have got a new manager and he'll want to assess his squad that he's inheriting, but you would hope that maybe a deal can be done between the two sides from a personal point of view, at least.
Yes, and as you say, very much one that's, I think, is going to rumble on for a lot of the summer. I feel, as you say, I think Norwich are back in pre-season at the end of June, so doesn't necessarily feel at this moment in time things can change. They do change very quickly and they can move, but it feels at the moment like Norwich are expecting him back at this stage for pre-season. Ryan, thank you so much for your insight, for your words. That was a really glowing and insightful bit on Adam Idah, and maybe I think some Norwich fans will probably be slightly surprised by it, given maybe the player that departed in January compared to maybe the player that is coming back this summer. So yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. But Celtic are experiencing that too with Mikey Johnson, who's went down on loan to West Bromwich Albion. Now, we've always known that there's a player there. Like, I think a lot of Norwich supporters and people who cover Norwich will think about Idah as well. He's had moments, but for the first time in his career, it seems as if Mikey Johnson has put it all together, and he's put together 5, 6, 7 good performances. Maybe not in a row, but in a short period of time that he couldn't do at Celtic. So it just goes to show you how important a change of scenery can be. And who knows, maybe even Mikey Johnson further down the line could make that move to Norwich if Norwich were interested in a winger. That could actually be, not to play devil's advocate or anything like that, but that could be part of the deal if Norwich are looking for maybe a winger down the line and a player that's used to the Championship as well. West Brom didn't make it up to the Premier League, likewise with Norwich, unfortunately, but a player that's used to playing in the Championship. Not to do all your signing and recruitment for you, but that could be an avenue that you could potentially go down.
Yeah, well, he's been linked before, so I don't think it's the worst shout in the world. Ryan, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your insight. I'm sure everyone else will as well. And like you said, it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see what happens with Adam Idah this summer. Just finally, for people who are watching and maybe aren't familiar or don't know where to find your work, just give yourself a little plug and let everyone know where they can find more of your Celtic ramblings.
Yeah, so if you're looking for some of the best Celtic content on the internet, at least so we say, it's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You'll get some free content on there, as well as some paid subscription. We're also on YouTube on the Celtic Way. If you just type that in, we do daily morning briefings, and you can find me on X at the Ryan McGinlay. So if you want to give me a follow and ask more about Adam Idah, I'd be more than happy to share my glowing review of the Irishman.
Top man, thank you very much, and thank you very much for watching and listening. And we will see you again for episode 3, which I think at this stage is going to be about a certain Abu Kamara. See you soon.